So, imagine this, a 72-hour window where the entire financial bedrock of the world just crumbles, literally vanishes. Welcome to today's Explainer. We're going to be breaking down this incredibly intense, highly technical hypothetical script from Nexus Documentaries. It's called The Collapse of the Dollar, the Day Trust Ended. And let me tell you, it reads straight up like a suspense thriller. But the crazy part, as we'll see, it's actually grounded in some terrifyingly real economic mechanics.
Just think about this chilling question for a second. What if the dollar completely lost its value? And I'm not talking about a bad week in the market or a temporary dip. I mean a total catastrophic loss of value in a matter of days. In this explainer, we're going to walk through a meticulously researched what-if scenario. It basically traces the exact domino effect of an event like this, starting all the way up at the global trading floors and hitting right down to, your local grocery store.
The whole script operates on this truly terrifying premise. Here's a direct quote. The US dollar is not just paper or bits on a server. It is the global religion of commerce. I mean, wow. Since the 1944 Bretton Woods Agreement, the entire world has basically operated on one simple collective assumption, right? That the dollar is as good as gold. But what this documentary explores isn't just a story about economics, it's really a deep dive into the absolute end of our collective global faith.
Which brings us to Section 1, the chronology of chaos, the first 72 hours. Let's see how this actually kicks off.
According to the document, the trigger gets pulled at exactly 2 a.m. The Asian markets open, and boom, a massive US Treasury sell-off is initiated by a major state player. Now, what should have been just a minor, maybe 1% correction, it completely turns into an abyss. Bond yields just skyrocket. That basically signals to the world that absolutely no one wants to lend to the US anymore. Then, 4 hours later, nothing. Total silence from the Federal Reserve. And you know how it is. That silence creates a massive vacuum that is instantly filled by pure panic. Institutional investors start dumping their dollars. Fast forward 24 hours, and we're looking at full-blown digital bank runs. So no, you aren't seeing crazy lines out on the street just yet. But behind the scenes, banking apps are completely crashing because millions of people are desperately trying to convert their balances into foreign currencies or crypto, all at the exact same time.
And when you have millions of these panic-driven conversion attempts flooding the global systems all at once, well, international clearing infrastructures like SWIFT simply can't handle the load. SWIFT is basically the international clearing system used by banks globally to process financial transactions. It's the plumbing, and the digital pipes just fundamentally clog up. This brings the rapid movement of global capital to a completely agonizing, unprecedented crawl.
Obviously, the real-world consequences of this hit immediately. We're talking cargo ships literally halting mid-ocean. The global supply chains just freeze entirely. Exporters are suddenly demanding payment in their own local currencies or even physical gold. They straight up refuse any dollar-denominated letters of credit. Global commerce relies entirely on the stability of this one reserve currency, and when it fails, the whole system just stops breathing.
Moving right along to Section 2, the end of the petrodollar, a fatal blow.
Now, we all know the immense power of the petrodollar, right? It's this global macroeconomic system where international oil sales are priced and traded exclusively in US dollars. Because of this, there has always been a guaranteed, somewhat artificial, global demand for the currency. For decades, it has literally been the absolute bedrock of America's exorbitant financial privilege.
But the documentary script details this jaw-dropping moment where the principal oil-producing nations step up and announce that oil will no longer be traded in dollars. Instead, it's going to be priced in a diversified basket of currencies. They just completely abandon the dollar. So in a single afternoon, its status as the world's unquestioned reserve currency is utterly, completely shattered.
And this is where the macroeconomic nightmare really hits the family kitchen. Because of the external devaluation of the currency, the cost of literally everything imported into the US triples overnight. The script so vividly describes this crazy environment where the prices for basic, everyday goods like gas and bread, they don't just go up, they change 3 times a day. Basic survival suddenly turns into a frantic daily struggle for the average American.
But of course, this contagion doesn't just stay contained to the US. It's a massive domino effect. Step 1, national dollar reserves held all over the world just evaporate into thin air. Step 2, emerging nations holding dollar-denominated debt are forced into technical default. I mean, they simply cannot honor their commitments in a currency that is now entirely scarce and incredibly volatile. Which rapidly leads us to Step 3, a state of total global insolvency.
And that drops us right into Section 3, the barter economy, finding a new anchor.
So what happens next?
The source material outlines this desperate split in the market as people scramble to find a new standard. On one side, you've got physical gold, but the prices reach astronomical levels, making it virtually impossible for average, everyday citizens to actually buy or use it. Then on the other side, you have decentralized digital networks like Bitcoin. The script impartially points out that these digital networks actually become some of the only viable transaction pathways that keep functioning. They just completely bypass those bankrupt intermediaries that totally failed the public.
But honestly, technology doesn't save everyone. We end up seeing this stark, brutal regression of commerce, especially out in smaller cities. The script paints a picture of civilization literally stepping backwards by decades, reduced entirely to a barter economy. We're talking fuel being traded directly for food, medical services being traded for basic tools, and all those shiny premium credit cards sitting in your wallet, overnight they become nothing more than ice scrapers for your windshield. The whole technological infrastructure of finance just collapses under the weight of this systemic default. As hunger and uncertainty spread like wildfire, massive protests start to erupt, testing the social contract to its absolute limit.
Which brings us to our final section. Section 4. The New Global Accord, Shifting Geopolitical Power.
Here, the source provides a really melancholic analysis of the end of the American dream as we know it. It argues that a lifestyle based entirely on cheap credit and unbridled consumption was just fundamentally unsustainable from the start. So the American middle class is forced into this harsh new reality of forced austerity. Meanwhile, the geopolitical axis of power definitively shifts over to the east, towards nations that actually prepared for this by building up gold reserves and productive autonomy. That basically leaves the West to just manage its own complete insolvency.
Naturally, in a desperate bid to save whatever's left, economic blocs attempt to introduce new systems. The script details the highly controversial rise of regional central bank digital currencies, or CBDCs. But here's the catch. The public is just deeply traumatized by the sudden collapse of the dollar, so they put up some heavy resistance to absolutely any new form of centralized money. At this point, trust in any government-issued currency is literally at absolute zero.
So the ultimate response has to come from the top. The documentary outlines what it calls a new Bretton Woods. World leaders gather for this highly secretive global leadership summit. Only this time, they aren't arguing about who gets to lead the world. The focus is entirely on just avoiding the complete economic extinction of modern society. And the long road to recovery begins with one very harsh realization. Trust has to be rebuilt from scratch. Not on government promises anymore, but on pure mathematical transparency and real, tangible assets.
The documentary ends on this incredibly powerful image, a single dollar bill, just discarded in a gutter, and it leaves us with this poignant thought. Money was never about paper or gold. It was always about our mutual belief that tomorrow someone else would accept what we have today. When that belief dies, the empire falls. It's intense, right? And it really all just leaves us with one final, haunting question. What will you hold when the music stops?